Hello, everyone. Get ready for an eye-opening story about an undercover CEO who risked everything to uncover the truth. Ryan Carter, the owner of a luxury resort chain, started hearing troubling reports about one of his properties. But instead of relying on corporate excuses, he went undercover as a regular guest. What did he find? A toxic workplace, overworked employees, and a manager who abused his power. But here's the twist. Ryan wasn't just there to observe, he was there to make a change. Stay with us as we reveal how he turned the entire resort around. Ryan Carter sat in his office, scanning the latest performance reports from his luxury resort chain. Business was booming overall, but one resort in a popular coastal town had been generating an increasing number of guest complaints. The reports from management were filled with excuses: staffing shortages, overly demanding guests, temporary service disruptions. Yet online reviews painted a different picture: rude staff, long wait times, poor maintenance, and an unwelcoming atmosphere. Ryan frowned. He had built his company from the ground up, starting with a single beachfront boutique resort, and prided himself on creating destinations that combined quality service with genuine hospitality. If one of his properties was failing, it meant he had lost touch with what was happening at the ground level. Determined to uncover the truth, Ryan called a meeting with his senior management team. When he pressed for answers, he got corporate jargon and rehearsed responses. His instincts told him there was more to the story than what he was being told. The resort's director, Victor, assured him that things were under control, dismissing concerns as minor operational hiccups. But Ryan wasn't convinced. He had learned over the years that numbers didn't always reflect reality, and reports could be manipulated. If he wanted the real story, he would need to see it for himself. That's when an idea struck him. He would go undercover as an ordinary guest and experience the resort firsthand. No special treatment, no VIP service, just an average traveler checking in. It was risky, but Ryan knew it was the only way to understand what was truly happening. A week later, he packed a duffel bag, traded his tailored suits for casual vacation wear, and grew out a beard to conceal his identity. With a simple pair of glasses and a new alias, Mark Ellis, he booked a stay at his own resort. As his car pulled up to the grand entrance, Ryan took a deep breath. The resort looked impressive from the outside, with its oceanfront views and palm-lined pathways. But the real test lay ahead. What awaited him inside? Ryan stepped through the resort's glass doors, expecting the warm welcome that his brand was known for. Instead, he was met with an entirely different atmosphere. The lobby, though stylish, had an underlying tension that was impossible to ignore. The front desk staff moved mechanically, their smiles forced. The air carried a faint mix of disinfectant and stress. Guests waited in a sluggishly moving line, shifting impatiently while employees scrambled behind the counter. When it was Ryan's turn, a tired young receptionist named Sophie barely glanced up from her computer. "Welcome to Ocean Breeze Resort. How can I help you?" she said, her voice monotone, her eyes already moving to the next task. Ryan gave her a polite smile. "I have a reservation under Mark Ellis." Sophie typed his name in, nodding absent-mindedly. 3 nights in a deluxe room, 2nd floor. "Here's your key card," she said, sliding it across the counter without making eye contact. She didn't ask if he needed help with his bags, didn't offer information about resort amenities, nothing. Before Ryan could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air. "For God's sake, Sophie, can you stop wasting time and handle the phone calls? We don't have all day." Ryan turned just in time to see Victor, the resort director, scowling at the front desk staff. His arms were crossed and his eyes darted between them like a hawk waiting to strike. He looked irritated rather than supportive, barking orders instead of leading. Sophie stiffened immediately. "Yes, Mr. Victor," she muttered, grabbing the phone with shaky hands. Ryan took a step aside, pretending to check his phone while secretly observing the interaction. In just a few minutes, he could already see that Victor ruled by fear rather than leadership. Employees looked nervous whenever he spoke, and guests received minimal attention. His gut told him that this was only the tip of the iceberg. As he walked toward the elevators, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the resort, his resort, had become something entirely different from what he had envisioned. He pressed the button for his floor, gripping his room key tightly. This wasn't just a poorly managed hotel. Something was deeply wrong here, and he was going to find out exactly what. As Ryan stepped out of the elevator and into the dimly lit hallway, he immediately noticed the neglect. The once pristine carpets were stained, the walls had scuff marks, and there was a faint musty odor lingering in the air. This was not the kind of environment he had built his brand on. Sliding his keycard into the door of his assigned room, he sighed as the lock clicked open. Inside, things weren't much better. The air felt stale, the bedside lamp flickered, and the bathroom had a faint mildew smell. If this was how guests were experiencing his resort, it was no wonder the complaints were piling up. Wanting to see more, Ryan headed downstairs toward the poolside bar, where guests lounged under cabanas with tropical drinks in hand. At first glance, the setting seemed idyllic, but as he approached the bar, he saw a single bartender working frantically to keep up with orders. The bartender, a young man with sun-bleached brown hair, looked up and gave him a weary smile. His name tag read Leo. "Sorry for the wait, sir," Leo said, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's been a crazy day." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Short-staffed?" Leo let out a tired chuckle. "Always. It's just me today. Management keeps cutting hours to save costs, but guests still expect top-tier service." He handed Ryan his drink before rushing off to serve another group. Ryan sipped his drink and watched the scene unfold. The staff was drowning in work, running between guests with hurried, forced smiles. Meanwhile, Victor strolled past without a care, ignoring the chaos. As Ryan walked toward the lounge area, he overheard two employees talking in hushed voices near a supply closet. "I can't keep up," one of them said, her voice cracking. "Victor keeps cutting shifts, but the workload just keeps getting worse." "Tell me about it," the other responded bitterly. "I'm working doubles just to make rent, and he still finds reasons to yell at me." Ryan's stomach twisted. This wasn't just inefficiency, this was exploitation. His resort, which had once been built on respect for employees and guests alike, had become a grueling, thankless workplace. He had seen enough for now. If things were this bad out in the open, what else was happening behind closed doors? He needed to keep digging. That evening, Ryan decided to dine at the resort's restaurant, hoping to observe more of the guest experience firsthand. The dining area, once known for its welcoming atmosphere, felt tense and chaotic. Several tables remained uncleared, servers moved at an exhausted pace, and guests were waiting far too long for their meals. Ryan took a seat near the back, giving him a good vantage point to watch the operation unfold. A few minutes later, Leo, the bartender from earlier, rushed past him, now carrying a tray of drinks. It was clear that even the restaurant was understaffed. Ryan could see the strain in Leo's posture, the way he forced a smile with every table he served. A couple at the table next to Ryan waved down a server. "Excuse me," the woman said politely. "We've been waiting for our food for over 30 minutes. The server, a young man named Miguel, offered an apologetic nod. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. The kitchen's backed up. I'll check on your order now." As Miguel turned toward the kitchen, Victor suddenly appeared, eyes scanning the room with irritation. He grabbed Miguel's arm mid-step. "Why are you standing around? We don't have time for chit-chat," he snapped, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Miguel swallowed hard. "I was just checking on Table 4's order, sir." Victor rolled his eyes. If they wanted fast food, they should have gone somewhere else. He gestured toward another table. "That table is waiting for drinks. Get moving." Ryan clenched his jaw, watching as Miguel dropped his shoulders and hurried away, clearly humiliated. This was not leadership, this was intimidation. Before Ryan could fully process his frustration, another incident unfolded near the front desk. A man in his late 20s, dressed in casual but slightly worn clothing, approached hesitantly. "Excuse me," the man said quietly. "Do you have any available rooms for tonight?" Victor barely looked up from his phone. "We're full." The man hesitated. "I've had a rough day. I was hoping—" Victor cut him off with a smirk. "Even if we had a room, it's not like you could afford it. Maybe try the shelter down the street." The man's face fell in shame before turning and walking away without another word. Ryan's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just poor management. This was cruelty. He had seen enough. "Tomorrow, Victor will answer this." The next morning, Ryan set out with a clear purpose: to gather as much information as possible before confronting Victor. Now that he had seen firsthand how poorly the resort was being run, He needed to understand the depth of the problem. He spent the day observing, listening, and subtly questioning employees, making sure to keep his cover as a guest intact. His first stop was the front desk, where Sophie was working another long shift. He approached her casually, lowering his voice. "Rough morning?" Sophie sighed, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Victor wasn't nearby. "Always," she muttered. "We're understaffed, overbooked, and no one cares. If a guest complains, Victor just tells us to deal with it." Ryan nodded, pushing gently. "Is it always like this?" Sophie hesitated before nodding. "It's gotten worse over the past year. He cuts hours, then blames us when we can't keep up, and if we say anything, he threatens to replace us." She gave Ryan a weak smile. "But I guess you're just here to relax, huh? You don't want to hear all that." On the contrary, Ryan wanted to hear everything. Later, he wandered near the housekeeping area, where he found Miguel, the exhausted server from last night, talking to a woman in a maid's uniform. "I'm telling you, Carla, he's skimming the tips," Miguel said, shaking his head. "We're supposed to get full shares, but somehow it's always short. Victor's taking a cut, I swear." Carla, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, sighed. "I believe it. Housekeeping's been stuck with broken vacuums for months, but Victor says there's no budget for replacements." Ryan absorbed every word, his anger growing. Not only was Victor exploiting employees, but he was also likely stealing from them. That evening, Ryan sat at the bar, watching Leo finish up another grueling shift. As he handed Ryan his drink, Ryan asked, "What would you change about this place if you could?" Leo let out a dry laugh. "Where do I start? More staff, better hours, someone who actually gives a damn about us? But that's not happening while Victor's in charge." Ryan had heard enough. This wasn't just bad management, it was systemic abuse. He had everything he needed. Tomorrow, Victor was going to face the consequences. The next morning, Ryan requested a private meeting with Victor, posing as an unhappy guest. When Victor arrived at the office, he looked mildly annoyed, checking his watch as he took a seat across from Ryan. "All right, Mr. Ellis," Victor said, leaning back in his chair. "What seems to be the problem?" Ryan exhaled slowly, keeping his expression neutral. "I've been here for 2 days now, and I've seen enough to know there's a serious problem with how this resort is being run." Victor rolled his eyes. "Oh, great, another complainer. Look, sir, we're a busy establishment. If a few things weren't perfect, I apologize, but—" Ryan leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Cut the act. I'm not a guest, Victor. I'm Ryan Carter." For a second, Victor's face went completely pale. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Ryan took off his glasses and set them on the desk. "I own this resort, and for the past 2 days, I've watched you run it into the ground. I've seen how you treat employees, how you dismiss guests, and how you steal from your own staff." His voice was calm but deadly. Victor sputtered, scrambling to recover. "Mr. Carter, There's a misunderstanding." Ryan cut him off. "The only misunderstanding here is that you thought you'd never get caught." He leaned back, letting his words sink in. "I've spoken to the staff. I've seen the understaffing, the unpaid overtime, the tip skimming. I watched you humiliate a man at the front desk last night." Ryan's jaw clenched as he remembered the look on the guest's face. "That was the moment I decided you were done here." Victor's hands tightened into fists, his mask of arrogance starting to crack. "Sir, if you'll just let me explain." Ryan stood, towering over him. "There's nothing to explain. You're fired. Effective immediately." Victor's eyes darted around as if looking for an escape. "You can't just—" "I already have," Ryan motioned toward the door. "Security is waiting outside to escort you off the property. You're finished, Victor." For the first time, Victor looked truly afraid, but Ryan didn't care. This man had turned his resort into a nightmare, and today, that nightmare ended. As Victor stormed out of the office, Ryan took a deep breath. Now it was time to fix the damage. An hour after firing Victor, Ryan gathered the entire staff in the resort's main conference room. Employees trickled in hesitantly, exchanging nervous glances. Rumors were already spreading Victor had been fired, but no one knew exactly what would happen next. Ryan stood at the front, his presence commanding but not intimidating. He wasn't here to scare them, he was here to set things right. Good afternoon, everyone, Ryan began, scanning the room. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Carter. I'm not just another guest. I'm the owner of this resort and this entire company. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Sophie covered her mouth in surprise, Miguel's eyes widened, and Leo let out a low whistle. They had been serving their own CEO without realizing it. I came here undercover because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, Ryan continued. And what did I saw? It was unacceptable. He took a deep breath. I saw dedicated employees being overworked and disrespected. I saw guests being ignored. I saw a toxic workplace where fear ruled instead of leadership. The room fell into stunned silence. No one had ever heard someone from corporate acknowledge the reality of their struggles. That ends today. Ryan's voice was firm. Victor is gone. Effective immediately, I'm making changes to ensure this resort becomes what it was always meant to be, a place where both employees and guests feel valued. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd, but Ryan wasn't done. He listed the changes. Hiring more staff to lighten the workload, restoring fair wages and paying overtime properly, fixing maintenance issues that had been ignored, ending the unfair tip-skimming practice, providing leadership training for managers who actually cared about their employees. Ryan's gaze swept the room, landing on the employees who had held this place together despite everything. For those of you who have been working hard, doing your best despite the conditions, you're finally going to get the support you deserve. For the first time, real hope flickered in the employees' eyes. Miguel nodded slowly, Sophie wiped away a tear, and Leo clenched his fist in victory. Ryan exhaled, finally allowing himself a small smile. This was only the beginning, but it was a damn good start. 3 months later, Ryan returned to the resort, stepping out of his car with a sense of anticipation. From the outside, the resort looked the same, the grand entrance, the lush palm trees, the familiar ocean breeze. But as soon as he walked through the doors, he felt the difference. The once tense atmosphere was gone, the lobby buzzed with energy, but it wasn't chaotic, it was efficient, welcoming, and warm. The front desk staff smiled genuinely as they checked in guests. A light, upbeat tune played softly over the speakers, and the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Ryan approached the front desk, where a familiar face stood, Leo. The former bartender was now wearing a neatly pressed uniform with a front desk supervisor badge pinned to his chest. "Good afternoon, welcome to Ocean Breeze Resort," Leo greeted him with a confident smile. Then, he did a double take. "Mr. Carter?" His face broke into a grin. "Wow, I wasn't expecting you." Ryan chuckled. Didn't mean to catch you off guard. Looks like you're running the show here now." Leo rubbed the back of his neck, looking both proud and slightly embarrassed. "Yeah, got promoted last month. It's been a learning curve, but Clara's been helping me a lot." As if on cue, Sophie, now Clara, the front desk manager, stepped out of the office holding a clipboard. When she spotted Ryan, her eyes lit up. "Mr. Carter, welcome back," she said, approaching him with a newfound confidence. "Things have been so much better since your visit. We have a full team now, and with the new policies in place, morale has completely turned around." Ryan nodded, taking in her enthusiasm. "And the guests?" Clara beamed. "Happier than ever, you'll see for yourself." As Ryan walked through the resort, he saw the changes firsthand. The pool area was spotless, with attentive staff ensuring guests were comfortable. The restaurant, which had once felt like a war zone, now operated like a well-oiled machine. Miguel had finally gotten the extra staff he needed, and in housekeeping, Carla and her team were equipped with new supplies and fair work schedules. Ryan finally exhaled, feeling a deep sense of pride, not in himself, but in the people who had made this transformation possible. This wasn't just about fixing one resort, it was about rebuilding a culture of respect and excellence. And now it is thriving. As Ryan made his way through the resort, taking in every sign of progress, he couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. The place was alive again, not just with guests enjoying their vacations, but with employees who actually looked happy to be there. For the first time in a long while, the resort felt like the kind of place he had always envisioned. Then he noticed a familiar face, a man sitting in the lounge area, casually flipping through a travel brochure. It took Ryan a second to place him, but when he did, his chest tightened. It was the same man Victor had cruelly dismissed months ago, telling him to find a shelter instead of offering him a room. Ryan walked over. "Excuse me," he said. "I think we've met before." The man looked up, startled. His appearance was different. His clothes were clean and well-fitted, his hair neatly combed, and his face brighter, more confident. He studied Ryan for a moment before realization dawned. "You're the owner, aren't you?" the man said, his expression softening. "I remember you." Ryan nodded. "I wanted to apologize for what happened that night. That should have never been the way you were treated." The man chuckled, shaking his head. "That day was rough, but honestly, things turned around for me. I got a job, moved into a better place. I'm actually in town for a training seminar." He glanced around the lobby. "And this place, it feels completely different." Ryan smiles, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling in. "That's because it is." Before leaving, Ryan gathered the entire staff in the main lobby for a final meeting. He looked around at the faces of the people who had carried this resort through its hardest times: Sophie, Miguel, Leo, Carla, and so many others. "I just want to say thank you," Ryan said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "The changes we've made wouldn't mean anything without your hard work and dedication. You are the reason this resort is what it is today." A murmur of appreciation spread through the room, and then applause. Genuine, heartfelt applause. As Ryan turned to leave, Clara stopped him at the door. "Heading out again?" she asked with a smile. "For now," Ryan said, "but I'll be back." And as he stepped outside into the warm ocean breeze, he knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The story of Ryan Carter's undercover experience highlights a crucial lesson about leadership, accountability, and the value of employees. It shows that a business is only as strong as the people running it, and when management fails to support its workers, the entire system suffers. Ryan built his resort empire with the vision of offering exceptional service, but by stepping away from daily operations, he lost sight of the struggles happening on the ground. His experience reminds us that leaders must be present, listen, and take action when things go wrong. Another key takeaway is that a toxic workplace doesn't just hurt employees. It affects customers, business reputation, and long-term success. Victor's mismanagement led to overworked staff, unhappy guests, and a culture of fear. However, when Ryan chose to empower his employees, provide better conditions, and replace poor leadership, the entire resort transformed. Ultimately, the story teaches that real leadership isn't about authority. It's about responsibility. A true leader invests in their people, ensures fair treatment, and takes action when something isn't right. Businesses thrive when employees feel valued, respected, and heard, because when they do, they will go above and beyond to create success.